The sarcasm is palpable.
Yeah, you can feel it dripping off my tongue.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Paid For Podcast. We're joined tonight by Jay.
People who live in glass houses should shut the fuck up.
Andrew.
Hello, all.
And myself, Burt, who's currently rebuilding his glass house. So there's been a couple of things going on this week, but one of the things I want to kind of wanted to intro from a post that I had placed earlier on our Facebook site. So Star Wars is now in the same hands as the people who give us Madden every year. How do we feel about the whole EA Star Wars thing?
Oof.
Oof. That's right.
Oof is about as best as I could come up with.
Yeah, that's oh man. So when you think about EA, obviously you think of the worst of EA. Like EA works with DICE and works with Visceral and BioWare. And BioWare does Mass Effect. If there was a Star Wars-esque Mass Effect game, that could be really cool. But at the same time, when you think about it, EA has done so much negative things to Mass Effect and Dead Space and other stuff like that, that I just can't see this going well. It just seems like EA has been the company that comes in to make other companies die.
Oh yeah, it's always been that way. They've killed quite a few corporations, like, for example, Maxis, Yeah. I mean, Maxis still technically exists under them, but it's still completely different than until EA took over.
Yeah, and it was EA's decision to do the whole always online thing with that.
And the more I thought about it, because I had listened to one of the casts I had missed and didn't have the opportunity to pitch in on, is that not only is it one of those things they're doing it for DRM, they're doing it for their marketing masters too. They want to be able to freshen up the ads so that they can get new blood in there, kind of work it from that angle as well. So, I mean, the idea of, seeing Star Wars and then seeing billboards for Starbucks, whoever they decide to pimp out to that particular week, yeah, that could really kind of kill it for me, too.
Well,
yeah.
I like the fact that they bought it, but again, I don't. Because, one, I like it because now maybe we'll be able to see games that we thought were going to get canceled, such as 1313.
Oh, give it to me.
Finally see the light. But
and EA could tackle that.
But on the other hand, it's EA. They're going to make us pay for that second 13.
Yeah.
So it's an on or off, how do I feel about this situation?
Yeah,
now, what I really want to see out of it is, EA gave me Mirror's Edge, which is one of my favorite sleeper hits ever. I think that the last thing that they need to cap that particular piece is to just give Faith a lightsaber and be done with it.
I'll agree with that.
Jedi Academy.
Yeah, when you think about it, I was extremely hyped for Star Wars 1313, and if it does get revived with EA, I guarantee you it's going to be a, Battlefield clone first-person shooter or a Mass Effect clone third-person shooter. There's just going to be no life in it, I guarantee you.
Call of Duty Alderaan.
Oh my god. No, they're going to finally make Star Wars Battlefront 3, and that's what it's going to be. It's going to be just Call of Space Duty.
But at least Battlefront 3 would exist.
Call of Duty Gunganox. It's going to be nothing good.
Obi-Wan, you need additional pylons. Shut up!
I don't know, guys. And it's not like everything EA does has always been awful. Like you said, Mirror's Edge was a great game. If they and the thing with Star Wars is it's a huge pool of ideas. You could make any kind of Star Wars game. You look at there are a lot of different kinds of Star Wars games. There's a very big universe. You could have a Mirror's Edge esque game on Coruscant, the big city planet. That would be pretty cool. I just feel like if anything, the recent history of EA is just. Why should we be excited? They're going to be flaunting this as their new big flagship. We have Star Wars now. We're doing all these new Star Wars things. Nobody is going to be excited about this because of the Mass Effect 3 crap, because of SimCity. It's just, I feel like they're just purposely dragging a new license down to the ground, and it sucks.
I agree.
Yeah.
Well, when it comes down to the Star Wars, IP, they get passed around like you would not believe. Like in the paper and pen gaming industry, Fantasy Flight Games recently got control of the IP for the role-playing game, and I got really excited to hear about it. I've seen it go through a couple of iterations, and then all of a sudden they say, oh yeah, we're going to have these custom dice that you need to buy. You can take Star Wars and you can turn it into some pretty bad stuff. And I don't think it's fair to necessarily just pick on EA specifically. I think that we could have given this to a lot of studios and ended up with a polished turd. I mean, look what happened with Aliens after being given to Gearbox. Gearbox gave us 2 amazing Borderlands games. And I was thinking, man, this is going to be great. And then those reviews started rolling in. So maybe we're being a little bit tough on EA early. It's one of the things where only time will tell. Star Wars is Star Wars, and some fanboys will buy anything. But we do have a chance that we might actually get some good stuff. That BioWare is on that list, despite what they did with Mass Effect 3. That gives me at least some vote of confidence. And the guys at Dead Space did at least well with the first 2 Dead Space titles.
That's true. And even the third one people liked outside of the whole microtransaction stuff, from what I understand.
And EA, they're not a terrible company. I mean, they're pretty bad. But they do good stuff. It's just when they do bad stuff, we focus more on the bad shit because, holy fuck, this video game company just, screwed up. Let's focus on it for 3 weeks.
That's very true.
And there's nothing on the internet that makes people get up and take note like a product completely and totally shitting the bed.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Man, yeah. So this begs the question to me, what would you guys want to see out of a new Star Wars game? Like I said, Star Wars is a huge universe. Regardless of how much the prequel sucks, if there's anything we can say about George Lucas is that he created a huge universe of Star Wars. What would you guys want to see out of a new Star Wars game?
Oh man, let's get a Madden port in there.
And Luke is passing it to Boba Fett, and he's going down the 40s, the 30.
I think I just gave Jay an aneurysm.
Me personally, I'd actually really enjoy to see a Knights of the Old Republic like the first one. We obviously have the online now, which is nothing like the original one that they released many years ago on the Xbox and PC. I thoroughly enjoyed that game. I remember playing it to my heart's content, day after day, and I'd love to see another one like it. I mean, I played the sequel, but it just didn't have the same feel.
Agreed. Yeah, I mean, that was a great RPG from what I recall. It's been a long time since I played it, but that kind of game is one of my favorite kinds of RPGs. It likens, in my mind, in some ways, to a lot of more recent stuff like Xenoblade Chronicles in weird ways. But something like that would be really cool. Man, it's hard to choose one thing because again, I used to be so into Star Wars. I was the kid who read all the expanded universe books and everything, and those are good books, but those were also really stupid sometimes. And so
I could never get into that. I think one of those really stupid ones would be the Death Troopers book. I don't know if you've read that one, but I know people who have, and it's just one of those they just shake their heads and walk away.
Never heard of it, but I could point you at some good ones if you want to give it another try sometime. But
sure, just stay away from Death Troopers, which is basically Star Wars with zombies.
All right. Oh God. Oh, I have heard of that, and I've been purposefully staying away from it. Yes. But no, for me, I think a Battlefront 3 would be amazing, because Battlefront 2 is just one of the most fun multiplayer games I've ever played. Kind of like what GoldenEye was to the N64. I think Battlefront 2 was to the PS2 and GameCube, or if it was on GameCube, I don't recall. I had it on PS2, but everyone's been clamoring for Battlefront 3. I remember there was some kind of Battlefront 3 in development at one point. They were showing dark Obi-Wan Kenobi, there were all these dark Jedi and stuff in it. It was taking a really weird turn. But then I think the studio that was making it canceled the project, or possibly just canned altogether. But I'd love to see something like that with some more, obviously, at the same time, I fear it would be turned into Battlefield 3 and Black Ops, and you know that under EA, a Battlefront 3 in the style of Battlefield and Black Ops is exactly what they try to do. So I hope they don't take too many cues from the other dumb modern shooters and just make another dumb modern shooter. Although I don't know about you guys, but if I had to play one, that is the one I would play, is the one where you can be a stormtrooper. But I don't know. If I think about it, I really liked Force Unleashed. I don't know about you guys. I thought the first Force Unleashed was great. The second one I never played, but I heard it was abysmal. I think another game in that kind of format with maybe something of a more exploration-based format, because that game was linear. It was fun, but it was linear. If they were to make a Force Unleashed style of combat in a game, and maybe add like almost a Zelda level of exploration and space exploration and planet exploration, or something kind of like how Mass Effect did, where you can sort of free roam the galaxy a lot of time, I think that could be really cool.
I always feel like I kind of got shortchanged on the Star Wars experience. For me, Star Wars has always been just episodes 4, 5, and 6. Video games, nice if I can get them, but I don't always. And the ones I did get were not necessarily really the good ones. Like, I had Star Wars Arcade for the 32X. That was pretty bad.
Yeah.
And, I've never really managed to get on the bus when, it was pulling out of the station for any of the games. What I really would like to see is I would like to see what they can salvage from 1313. The problem that I think we'll see is now that Disney holds the reign to the IP, they're really going to downplay stuff like that, I think. Disney is at its core that they have a demographic they want to hit, and they're going to expand this, but I don't think they're going to want to explore a lot of the themes 1313 was gearing up for.
Well, all right, I don't know about that entirely. Like, I see your point in that Disney could obviously have an influence. I think maybe you're judging a little too much how much that influence is going to be. Like, remember, I think it was about a year and a half ago when Disney bought Marvel. That was a big thing. Everyone was freaking out about that. And the Avengers and all the Marvel material since then has been just as around the same level of quality as before. The only change being made is who the money is going to at the highest level. Like, the studios creating Marvel Comics at the time were still intact and mostly uninfluenced by Disney, from what I understand, and I think we can probably assume that the same is true of the Star Wars license.
For the movie end of things, for the most part, yeah, the movies arguably got better. You let Joss Whedon in on any property, and you're okay.
Damn right.
But I think it has affected a little bit more in the comic industry than it has in the film industry. And honestly, they're talking about making a new Star Wars film once a year now.
Ugh.
And that they are going to maximally exploit that IP as much as they can. It's just a question of how much they're going to stick to the canon, because I think this may be a case of George Lucas, he's going to sleep on that bed full of money now and thinking that he's still going to be able to call some shots with his baby. Oh no, if Disney finds out that it's profitable to release the original cuts of 4, 5, and 6 again, they're going to find a way.
Yeah.
So, a lot of it is kind of a wild card with Disney. In some cases, they do some things really well, and in other cases, they want to bust things down into their process so that they can get maximum return on investment for their shareholders. That's the way they work as a company.
It's very true.
Yeah.
But no, yeah, I think it's definitely going to be interesting to see what happens. Yeah, a lot of people do forget. I forgot about the whole Disney buyout of Star Wars. It's been Disney, now EA, and the question is how much this will separate Star Wars from what it originally was. But I don't know. I think dedicated Star Wars fans, and this is speaking as someone who used to be a very dedicated Star Wars fan, dedicated Star Wars fans are pretty forgiving. Like, obviously most Star Wars fans hated the prequel movies, as they had every right to, because at least 2 of them were abysmal. Hey, that's from the better one. That's from the moderately better one, too. But, I mean, overall, I think people are very accepting of things that diverge from what the series mainly is, like all the expanded universe books and comics and everything. And if the games continue to be expansions on a universe, like, I think that's why people like Force Unleashed so much, is it was just an interesting expansion on the existing universe. It wasn't really directly following any of the characters from the movies or anything. Like, there were nods to things that happened in the movies, and the end of the first game is tied to something that happens in the movies, but in a way that doesn't tie it too directly to it. I think as long as the creative process keeps working like that, just keeps adding to the world in a good way, then hopefully things won't go sour. And I hope 1313 does come back and it's still good. Like, I hope they hire back whatever people were working on that, because that looked really like something special, and I'm sad it got canned.
How long was the development cycle on that run? And I know that they've been talking about 1313 for at least half a year.
I believe it was first shown at last E3. They're developing it for next generation consoles, from what I understand. So I think they've been working on it for a while before E3. Like, what they were showing was very much experimental level stuff still at that point. But from what I understand, they've been working on it for a while, and they still were working on it a lot. And it was going to star Boba Fett, which would have been pretty cool, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, there's a large cult of Boba Fett fans out there who definitely, they can tell you everything you need to know about Boba Fett, and they just saw Boba Fett standing over that big pit and just looking down there through that kind of chasm that they had in that one shot, and you can just hear all of the Star Wars fanboys out there going, "Want?"
Yeah, I don't know.
I can't imagine they'll leave it by the wayside. That's something that will sell no matter what, I think. I think we'll be seeing 1313. And if the guys at BioWare get their hands on it, it could be something else.
That's what I'm hoping for. Because, yeah, I mean, I enjoy the first two Mass Effect games a whole great deal. And I think as long as, if they've definitely proven their worth as people who can make, a sort of space opera kind of game work. Like Mass Effect is Star Trek the game. I forget who said that, but it's very true. And I think if they can create a similar kind of atmosphere and just make space exploration work and feel fun like it did in Mass Effect, then we'll have something good.
Only time will tell.
Indeed. So, one more question before we move on. I was curious what everyone's favorite Star Wars game was.
Ooh. All right, Burt, I'm gonna have to let you take this first. I gotta think about this.
Oh man. Okay, I'm going to again go back to the well of ages here. When I was a kid, I remember looking in the arcades, like in the early 1980s, and seeing this like vector graphics based shooter. I have no doubt that you can find this on consoles, but it was the first Star Wars video game I ever played, and by played I meant, my parents would let me wander over to it, and I'd move around the joystick, but without a quarter I wasn't really playing. But I'd sit there and watch the shit out of that demo. And I remember I managed to get a hold of it on like a console port for something a long time ago. I just loved that original arcade game. All it was basically, flying around in space shooting TIE fighters and then eventually going into the trench and being shot down by Darth Vader. So, but that's definitely a nostalgia one. Like I said, I didn't really get a lot of exposure to some of the better games. I wish I would have had a chance to get into the Coder games that they had on the original Xbox. And I still have friends who are harassing me about getting onto the MMORPG.
Yeah, I've meant to check out the MMO. I believe it's been free to play for a while. I just haven't gotten around to it.
I'm afraid to, personally.
So I need to get a PC that could actually run something. Right now I've got a Dell laptop that's 2 years old that has a crap modem in it that doesn't really want to connect to anything ever, so...
Yeah, Burt, you could have stopped at I have a Dell laptop.
That's about right.
Yeah.
Sounds about right, yep.
Yeah, I mean, my gateway runs better than that.
I have a Toshiba. How do you think I feel?
Yeah, on top of the world.
Generic?
Pretty.
Yeah. But, oh no, go ahead.
I think I've decided which one. It's either Knights of the Old Republic, the original one. I loved that game. I loved, I think it was probably my first game, besides, I think, Fable, that gave me that choice to be good or bad. I could make the right decisions, or I could make, the wrong decisions, and the story progressed throughout which decisions I made. And that just, to me, that was a lot of fun. The story was nice, the characters were memorable. I remember getting, an R2-D2 type of robot, I don't remember how they're called. And another game, it's probably up there, but I don't remember anything about it. Had it for the 64. It was not Squadron. It was one where you walked around.
Shadows of the Empire?
It might be. Honestly, it's been years, but I remember I played it to bits. This is probably 12 years ago. I played that every time I booted up my 64.
Was that the one that had the badass Hoth battle scenes?
You're asking. I don't know.
The one that I'm thinking of, I think I know the one you're talking about. You're running around and it was on the 64, but you had alternating scenarios where you'd be on the ground and you have that third person over the shoulder camera, and you'd be running around and shooting things, and then you jump into a snowspeeder and you're going through the Battle of Hoth.
Was it Rogue Squadron?
I think so.
Yeah. This sounds very vaguely familiar, and I think you're talking about Rogue Squadron.
I think it was Rogue Squadron. The main thing I can remember from it is that the collectibles were the little, like the emblem of the Resistance, like, I can't.
The Rebels, yeah.
Yeah, the Rebel symbol.
It's been a while, hasn't it?
Yeah, years.
Yep.
Well, yeah, probably those two.
Alright, cool. Yeah, for me, it's gotta be, like you said, Knights of the Old Republic is great. I didn't discover that until a few years ago, one Christmas when it was on sale on Steam for $2.50. So I was like, hey, I'll pick that up. And that's a lot of fun. Like you said, that introduced what became a lot more popular in Mass Effect with the whole Paragon and Renegade system. Obviously, it wasn't called that in Star Wars, but the whole good and evil system, it works well with the context of the Force, obviously. I think the other one that comes to mind for me is honestly Force Unleashed. I really liked Force Unleashed. I know a lot of people gave kind of mediocre reviews, like, yeah, it's good, it's not the best. I thought that was like the most fun I had with a Star Wars game since Knights of the Old, like a Star Wars game that was newer than Knights of the Old Republic. That was a lot of fun. And honestly, I have to give an honorable mention to the Lego Star Wars games. those are just a lot. Those are just such mindless, silly, fun takes on the Star Wars movies. And when I was a child, Star Wars and Legos were my jam. So when I found out they were making a game combining two of my favorite things, it was like. It was like someone who grows up in the 80s, like, liking Legos and liking Ninja Turtles, and now seeing that there are Lego Ninja Turtles and just freaking out. Like, that's how it was for me. It was amazing. But, yeah, that's probably mine. Force Unleashed was good. That one had an interesting story that I liked, which the others didn't quite so much. I don't really remember anything about the story in Knights of the Old Republic, and obviously Lego Star Wars was Lego Star Wars. But yeah, I think that, did anyone else want to say anything about the whole EA Star Wars topic? Any closing thoughts?
Nope. I think we got it.
Alright, so with that, sadly we have no Frank here to give his input on the following things, but we have a round table to discuss and some new things to put up as sacrifices for the rest of us to enjoy or slaughter. So last time we had the Shining Force games from Frank. He recommended Shining Force 1 or 2 or 3 if we could find it. From me, we had Off, which was the creepy little French RPG. From Andrew, we had Ready Player One, and from Burt, we had Remnant. So, Burt, let's start with you. What did you choose to check out?
I managed to get into Ready Player One. That's Ernest Cline, I think, is the author on it.
Yeah.
And managed to cut into like the first couple chapters of it. If you really kind of want to get the maximum dork potential out of that title, you can go to Audible and get it online, and Star Trek's Wesley Crusher, Will Wheaton, will be more than happy to read you a bedtime story. I've heard a little bit of that even before the podcast, so I was further along in that. But so far, I like what I see. If you're a fan of the 80s,
yes,
it's a book that's for you. If you can't identify with any of that, though, you may have a hard time cutting your teeth on it. But so far, so good. I've enjoyed it.
Good.
All right, so Andrew, you said you didn't really have a chance to check out much of anything, right?
Unfortunately, I really wanted to just,
Yeah.
It's
been one of those weeks, yeah. For sure.
I definitely promise I'm going to be checking out some of that stuff. Whatever you guys throw at me this week, I definitely will.
All right, my thing is something that's easy to check out, but I'll get to that in a second. I checked out Ready Player One too because I had it. Andrew loaned it to me, I think 2 months ago at least, and I just hadn't had a chance to pick it up. I like it so far. I'm like 10 chapters in, to the point where, without spoiling anything, the main character meets Artemis, I'm just going to say that to give the least spoilers about what's going on, but there's not really much to spoil at that point. And so I'm about 100 pages in. I really like it so far, and I was impressed that it managed to sell me the kind of world I would normally never care about. Because my thing is, I like a well-done world in a book or game or anything, but the one kind I've just gotten sick of for whatever reason is the kind where, the real world is all turned to shit now, so we have to either find an escape from it or, be the last remnant of hope of it. And that's kind of the vibe I get from this book. It's very much the real world's gone all to shit, and so everyone's looking for escapism through this game. And I just personally, I tire of that kind of setup. I think I've just seen it too much recently. I can't even name you in what offhand, but it's just something I've gotten tired of. And yet, this book manages to sell it to me in a way I like, mostly through detail. He's talking about being in his class in school inside the Oasis, and talking about how the teachers in the Oasis are a lot happier than teachers in real life because they don't have to deal with as much corralling of their students, as much forcing them to pay attention. Just little details like that I thought were really intelligent and really added a lot to selling the world to me. There was something else I was going to say about it, but yeah, I like it. I think it's interesting. It's a lot of 80s stuff, and I will say I didn't live during the 80s, but I definitely appreciate nerding over the 80s just as much as I nerd over stuff now. And, everyone has their time period that they obsess over, and so I appreciate it for that. I don't know how much I'm going to keep enjoying it if it's still as obsessive over the 80s in another 200 pages, but we'll wait to see in that. I might mention it again once I finish the book.
I have it from reliable sources that it's going to be 200 more pages of a lot of concentrated 80s stuff. Ernest Cline really loves it.
Yeah, which is fine.
Well, that's true. It does, get into 80s, but it also does start to do a lot more of the video game aspect and about the Oasis and what fills it.
Right,
just
yeah.
At this moment, it's kind of like that.
Yeah, it's just so far the line of where backstory and trivia ends and the actual action begins is a little uneven to me. And that'll probably change as I keep going. But yeah, so I think that about covers Ready Player One. It's interesting. I'll keep reading. I think, like Burt said, if you're an 80s baby, this is definitely for you.
Yeah, it hits me where I live on a lot of things. Like every movie they've brought up so far. Oh yeah, I remember that movie. I remember Heathers.
You're the perfect person to read it because you grew up during that time.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, there was a lot of time hanging out with Marty McFly, and
Oh, goodness God, Marty McFly. Love me some Back to the Future.
Yeah, but yeah. I was honestly surprised with it because I think I was talking about what was it, Wreck-It Ralph a couple episodes ago, and how for me, a piece of fiction having a lot of references to something doesn't validify it to me. That doesn't really do anything for me by itself. And this definitely goes past just having references. It's actually interesting. It's actually, I am interested in this kid. And that's the other thing. That's what I was going to mention, is I'm glad they didn't make this kid just some super nerd genius, kind of cool kid. He acknowledges that he has a lot of problems, and you get the feeling, this is what I was trying to get at when I was trying to stumble over my sentences in the part you guys won't hear. But this is what I really liked about the narrative, is that he starts talking at one point about how his obsession with finding the keys got started. And he goes off on a tangent. He's talking about how he watched all the movies that this guy listed in his almanac and all the games he loved to play and all this stuff from this guy's life that the main character just obsessed over. And you get the distinct impression that this main character is kind of off the handle about this. He's a little bit obsessed. And I think
he's a part of that subculture too. You've got all of these gunters who are out there, and it's one of those, well, goddamn, I'm going to find all of these keys because that's a lot of money, and I can live in a really, really nice environment with cash like that. So they start dumpster diving and trawling for all of the 80s information. I can totally see hordes of people looking to grab the brass ring by watching old 80s movies. Shit, if I could turn that into a potentially lucrative enterprise, that would be great.
Yeah, totally agree. Yeah, and that's what I was going to say. I really like that they managed to they were okay with just selling that these people are a little bit off the rocker. And at the same time, you're not just thinking, oh my god, these guys are going crazy. You sort of get the obsession, right? Because like we're all nerds here, obviously. We all have things we're just plain obsessed over in video games and other stuff, in whatever. And like you get that obsession, and you get how in that kind of desperate real world environment, like they can be that driven and obsessed to win this big golden prize. And I'm really interested to see where it goes.
Speaking of being obsessed, Burt, are you playing with your 3DS? I think I just heard the menu.
Yeah, me too.
You may indeed have heard the menu. I think I had accidentally hit the volume there, browsing through the e-store, which I am now addicted to because it's my link back to the 80s. I want Kid Icarus, and I am just a couple of cents short.
Oh, wow.
Pick up some of the original titles on there, too, while you're at it. Mighty Switch Force is great. And
I picked up Super Mario Brothers, I picked up Castlevania, I picked up Dr. Mario, and I picked up the original Metroid. Oh. So I've definitely got some stuff from back in the day playing on this thing.
Nice.
Awesome. All right, guys. So as for what we're doing this week for the round table, I'm going to go ahead and go first because I'm a cheeky bastard. I may have alluded to in the last episode, I've been reading Homestuck, and I'm going to say right now, Homestuck is this big thing, for those of you who don't know, it's kind of this enormous cult classic webcomic, or not exactly a cult classic, it's got a huge following on the internet, probably one of the most obsessed over things on the internet right now. It's an enormous kind of visual novel-esque webcomic adventure story, I guess. It's kind of hard to describe it. It's not a webcomic in the traditional sense, because there's long strings of dialogue without actual images to go with them. There's animations. There's interactive point-and-click adventure game segments to it. The guy goes crazy making stuff for it. And I'm going to say right now, my thing for this week is not to have you guys read Homestuck, because one, Homestuck is enormous. I believe it currently qualifies as the 8th longest story ever written in the English language. And no joke. And two, you would only have the chance to read the first act of it, which honestly isn't a good representation of what comes. But one cool thing about Homestuck is the music. Homestuck, like I said, Andrew Hussey, the creator of it, he's a very good artist. He originally the comic is hosted on mspaintadventures.com, where he originally did another series called Problem Sleuth, which also had a very big following. And he's actually a very good artist, so a lot of times he'll do like animated segments where things get a lot more higher quality and get a lot more epic and grandiose, and there are interactive segments like point-and-click adventure games and stuff. He puts a lot of work into it, and as such, he has a lot of people who write music for it. He has a whole like army of musicians who do music for Homestuck, and as such, the creation of albums based off the comic and the characters in the world have sort of become their own thing, and you can find every album for free on their Bandcamp page. And Homestuck has been around for about 4 years, and there are 27 albums. That's a lot of music. Now, I'm not going to recommend you guys listen to all 27, but I have 2 different ones to recommend for the roundtable this week. One is Homestuck Volume 9, which is probably the best one for people who want a sort of video game music-esque thing. Like, there's a lot of stuff that will remind you of some cool, like, 16-bit music. There's some homages to, like, 90s game propaganda and stuff in there. That's really fun. But there's that, and then there's another one, the newest one called Cherubim. Cherubim is a little more kind of mixes like symphonic stuff with black metal. It's a lot more higher concept and higher quality, or not higher quality, but just higher production value. And it's kind of a different sound as well. So my submission for the roundtable this week is those 2 albums, which you can listen to for free on their Bandcamp page, Volume 9 or Cherubim. And if you get adventurous, I would definitely recommend checking out some of the albums too, the other albums. They're all very different sounds from each other. Like they'll do whole albums just to explore different obscure concepts.
I think the genre you're looking for Cherubim is called symphonic metal. Yeah. Otherwise known as hot chick lead singer surrounded by guys desperately trying to get in bed with her. This is a readily identified meme as far as I'm concerned. But look up symphonic metal. There are actually some pretty good groups and some pretty good tunes that are banging around that you might like in similar vein.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. It's not quite that, because they're like the first few tracks are very much just symphonic, and then the metal stuff kicks in. It's kind of like each track is either or, and there's an interesting balance of them.
Every once in a while, metal kicks in the door.
Kind of, because again, they do concept albums, and this album is based off the two characters you see on the cover, who one is very much this, like, elegant sort of character, and the other is this badass who carries a machine gun around with him everywhere. And so they sort of use that contrast in the album. But yeah, so that's what I have. Burt, why don't you go next?
Well, the more I sat here and thought about it, the more I realized that I kind of had a twofer here. A couple of months ago, you probably saw the trailer that came out for Cyberpunk 2077. And it's beautiful. I think that it's rotting over at Red Project over in Poland somewhere. They haven't really updated anything on their blog page for it, but the IP it's based off of is a game called Cyberpunk 2020. It was one of my formative RPG games growing up. Basically, and the funny thing is you go through and you read it, some of it is so antiquated, and a lot of it came true. But basically, it's set in a fictitious Californian city called Night City. That's their out of the box location for you, and basically it was set up to kind of be a new city for a new America, but organized crime got involved. The federal government fell apart. Everybody's broke. Japan is pretty much owning the world markets. And before you know it, there's really no American government left. It's pretty much, there's puppet government, which is left over, but the corporations are running them, and there's maybe about 10 corporations that sit at the top. And they pretty much call the shots, and the other big portion of the world that they set up is that it's the kind of world where people, wake up one day and they say, you know what, this arm sucks. I need a better one. One with a knife in it. I know somebody shady enough to give me a cyber arm with a knife in it, or to put a gun in it. Oh yeah, and I want to be able to see an infrared spectrum like the Predator, so that when I use my knife arm, I can see the fear pop up in full thermographic imagery. So people get all sorts of technology put into them, and they go down a very slippery slope as they do, because the more little pieces of metal and plastic you shove into your body, the less human you get. Everybody all of a sudden becomes fragile and whiny, and when they no longer serve a purpose to you, the world is kind of better without them in the mind of the cyber psychotic. So you have player characters who basically have, who have these cybernetic implants in them. They usually work very shady jobs doing bad things for worse people. Although occasionally you can find a group of punks who will basically be willing to kind of, thumb their nose at the corporations, go ahead and have their own agendas. You can play lots of different kind of games in it. And the good news is that with Cyberpunk 2077 getting all of the buzz that it got on the 3-minute clip that came up a couple months back, they actually re-released a print run from it, according to the cyberpunk.net page. In addition to that, the 2077 game, it's supposed to be very much like a BioWare game where you really get to super customize your character, and they're talking about an option that you'll actually be able to take your character and print out a version of it to play on the tabletop game for Cyberpunk 2020. So I'm really excited about that, and anybody who wants to get into a system that is relatively light, not as light as Remnants from last week, but Cyberpunk is generally light. Combat is meant to kill you, but everything else is very cinematic. It's not really one of those things where it's a matter of, well, that wouldn't really happen. It's very much substance over reality, but it's worth a look. If you want to get a physical copy of it, you can probably check out that article on cyberpunk.net, or you can head over to rpg.drivethroughstuff.com.
All right, cool. I will admit I unfortunately hadn't actually heard of Cyberpunk 2077. But yeah, this sounds very interesting. I might check this out. I've been looking at the Wikipedia page for it as you've been talking. This sounds, I will definitely give this a shot. Actually, this sounds very much right up my alley.
One of the things I love about the book too is as you go through it, you'll see quotes that are up in the margins from actual characters inside of the world. And there's one that's talking about speedwear and how fast it will make you. And there's a whole bunch of guys who are down in the Latin American war theater. And, they're sitting there talking about how fast they are. And the one guy who's doing a prodigious amount of drugs says, I bet you I can catch a bullet. And then proceeds to. Of course, it blows his hand right off. But the way he sees it, the military will buy him a new hand, and he buys drinks off of that story for the next 20 years.
Hey, there you go.
And you get little views into the world like that every couple pages, and it's really, really neat. It also ties into some of my favorite books I read growing up, like William Gibson's Neuromancer. As far as I'm concerned, that's kind of my Bible for writing, both as a style guide and a plotting guide. You get a lot of stuff from that book that makes its way into Cyberpunk. Night City even has the William Gibson Freeway, which they kind of make a little homage to. So it's full of little nuggets if you're into fiction from around the mid '80s.
Cool.
All right.
And then what'd you say was the name of it? The particular one you have us check out?
The name of the book, the name of the RPG game book is Cyberpunk 2020, and I'll give a little shout out to Neuromancer by William Gibson. That could be extra credit if you want. Relatively short by sci-fi book standards today, and it's one of the best I've ever read.
All right, very cool. All right, Andrew, what about you?
Well, I was thinking about this for a good past hour or so, and it's going to come down to actually another book. Sorry, guys, this will be my last book.
No problem.
Jay actually knows this book. He's read it. He actually bought it because I made him.
Oh, I know what this is.
It's called John Dies at the End. It's not a video game book. It's not, it doesn't revolve around, like, a game story or anything. Have you heard about it?
It's 100% awesome.
Oh, have you heard of it?
I've read it, and I'm going to be reading the second book shortly.
Oh, man, you're going to love the second one. Oh. For those listening that actually haven't heard of John Dies at the End, the main character's name is David Wong, simply because David is the most common first name in the world, and Wong is the most common last name in the world. About him and his friend John, who come across a mysterious drug called soy sauce. And without spoiling much, it basically opens their minds to a whole nother, world.
I would describe, just to interject for a second, I would describe this as the show Supernatural meets, oh my god, I'm blanking on the name of it now, that,
It's Hunter S. Thompson meets Ghostbusters in a lot of ways.
That's what I was trying to get at. Hunter S. Thompson, the Las Vegas one.
It's a pretty crazy book. It doesn't fail to surprise you here or there. It's comedy gold. It's hilarious. And the characters are lovable and memorable, that's for sure.
And the movie isn't too bad, but they can't do, more than a third of what's in the book. But if you get a chance, check out the film. The film is also pretty good by its own merit. Not as good as the book, but still worth a watch.
Oh, I agree. Now, for those who do want to read it, I must warn you, if you do plan on reading the book, just make sure that you are, paying attention, because towards the second third of the book, it gets really hard to concentrate on, what's going on, because there's a lot going on.
And it's all hallucinogenic and trippy as well, as they experience the drug.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah.
So it's something you will enjoy, but just try to make sure you pay attention towards the end.
It's also very graphic in a lot, which I'm fine with, and I think most of our listeners probably are. But just to be forewarned, definitely probably not one to listen to an audiobook of if you have anyone around who you don't want to hear some of the things.
Headphones only.
Yeah, definitely, big time.
And
oh, good.
Oh no, what Burt said, if you do happen to like John Dies at the End, I definitely suggest the sequel, which is called "This Book is Full of Spiders." Seriously, dude, don't touch it.
Yeah, I looked at that, and that was actually kind of what got me in a roundabout way to go read John Dies at the End, because I was like, that is a book with a title I want to read. That is the sequel.
It's good. I'm not actually sure which one I like more. They're both exceptional, fantastical books. And David Wong, the author, is actually the creator of Cracked.com.
Yeah, he does the head editor duties over there.
Yeah.
He got a lot of good articles.
Did he create Cracked?
I don't know if he created it, but I do know he's one of the head editors.
Yeah.
And believe me, John Dies at the End cemented that shit.
Oh, yeah.
Because for somebody who wants to take, the H.P. Lovecraft kind of stuff that he works with and then turn it into comedy, that takes a very unique perspective. And it's a perspective that dude has in spades.
Absolutely.
I agree. It's he's very good author. I immensely enjoy his writing, and he actually did say that he actually didn't ask me anything on Reddit about a month or so ago, and they said that they'd love to work on a third one.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll see one.
Yeah, we'll definitely get a third novel. I mean, you never know with films, with books really too. I mean, both industries are very, very risk averse these days. So long as it makes money, they're open to doing sequels. And what with crowdsourcing being what it is these days, shit, start a Kickstarter if you can't get the big studio money on it. The book's generally low overhead to write until you calculate how much coffee goes into it. But, I think we'll definitely see continued adventures with John and Dave going through that series.
Oh, I hope
Way
so.
better.
Go up to the booth and buy a bratwurst. Bratwurst costs $3 now? Man.
Oh.
And for those who do want to read, I'll just tell you now, no, John doesn't die at the end.
Yeah.
He dies somewhere in the
Yeah,
middle.
he does kind of in the...
But don't worry, he's alive at the end.
He's good.
I've been trying to convince my pop. My pop and I have very similar sensibilities to watch it, but he is he's not a gore person.
Oh.
He's like, is it gory? And I'm like, it's gory, but in all of the right ways. If you like the movie, I'll be more than happy to give you the book.
Describe the first part, the opening part of the book to him and get his reaction.
I put that up as a quote on my Facebook page. The whole, is it true? The bit where he says, if you can answer this riddle, then you understand the horrible cosmic truth at the center of this universe.
Yep.
Oh, great book. All right.
All right, well, that's what I got to say. John dies at the end, and if you want the sequel.
All right, guys. So we've got John Dies at the End, we've got Cyberpunk 2020, and we've got the albums Cherubim and Homestuck Volume 9. So, Andrew, let me ask you a time-riddled question that the theologists have asked each other down through the ages. What have you been playing?
What have I been playing?
Well, if it's a theologist, you should say a harp.
Yeah, that was the... Yeah.
Well, I didn't know. Well, like I said, I've been having a pretty hectic week. Been busy. Haven't really gotten a chance to do much outside of my personal life, but I have been playing, as you might have guessed, more Monster Hunter.
Oh, my God.
I'm not going to go into it like I have in the past, but let's just say I'm about 140 hours in. And besides
I feel like...
That's intense.
Yeah, I feel like the end of the year is going to roll around and we're each going to do our top 5 games of the year list again, and yours is just going to be Monster Hunter, Monster Hunter, Monster Hunter, Monster Hunter, because that's all you've played.
That's going to be maybe my most played game of the year. Like, seriously, there's maybe one game coming out this year that I could probably play more than Monster Hunter, and I possibly will. And that's Animal Crossing New Leaf. Okay?
Yeah.
You have no idea how many years I've been waiting for this game.
I completely understand game fixation, too. I was that way with Fallout 3 and with Deus Ex. I'm still playing Deus Ex, and I've beaten it 4 times.
I had to force myself to stop playing New Vegas. I remember I even went out and bought some Microsoft points to get the DLC. I haven't touched them because I like New Vegas all day, every day, like for a good few weeks, and I just need to stop.
And New Vegas it didn't get me quite as much as the original Fallout 3 did, but man, those were good games. But tangent, we digress.
Yeah. Besides that, I've been playing Super Mario World on the Wii U. It was recently released on the Virtual Console. I actually did already own it for the Wii's Virtual Console, but never got to play it because I never had a classic controller, and it's really hard to play with the GameCube. Mm-hmm. This is my, I guess, first experience with Super Mario World that I've actually been able to sit down, actually enjoy playing, and beat the bosses. Mm. What's really cool with the fact that it's on the Wii U Virtual Console that I was surprised because it's Nintendo, you can actually customize where you want the buttons to go.
Nice.
So instead of having the run button put to just X, I can also move it so it's on R. So if I want to hold R, I can run using R.
Neat.
It's I've really enjoyed it. It's a very memorable Super Mario game, and I'll definitely be playing it again. All right, but that's enough about me. Burt, what have you been playing lately?
Well, as evidenced by the fact that you could hear the Nintendo eStore playing in the background there for that brief sentence, which I apologize for, listeners. The 3DS has come into my life. I've put up a post about it in the website up at apoorplayer.com as a late to the game segment. I've got some of the newer titles for it. Like, I've picked up Fire Emblem on the recommendation of you guys. And Fire Emblem is easily, like, I didn't expect to get a game that polished out of the handheld, truth be told.
Yeah.
And when I saw that 3D opening for it, it just kind of blew me away. The gameplay, I mean, you know, it's top-down, it's strategy RPG. Strategy RPG usually not the kind of thing that I'm usually playing. I'm more a fan of things like Final Fantasy VII or Phantasy Star. But I've been playing that. I've been playing a ton of those 8-bit classics, though. God damn, I like the 8-bit classics. I think that that the Virtual Console is pretty much going to ruin me. That's just going to take my time away. I'm afraid to bring the console to work with me. Yeah, it's one of those. I'm going to get into my car on break and I'm going to start playing that, and it's going to go, oh God, I was supposed to be at my cube 2 hours ago. But that's been fun.
I have to ask, are you addicted to Street Passes at all?
I do find myself running around because where I work, I could best describe it as the Valhalla of the nerds. You know, it is a very technically oriented place, and a lot of us have DSs and portable technology. So I come in, and, you know, like, one of the first things that usually happens in the day, oh, look, Franny's wife came in. She's 3 cubes up the road from me, and there's the Street Pass. She just gave me the high five and another puzzle piece. Badass.
That's awesome. I remember, actually, it's still, like, it's been 2 years since I got my 3DS. I'm still addicted to getting Street Passes.
Yeah, same here.
Just can't get enough.
One of my buddies went out to one of the PAX conventions and just walked around with his Street Pass. He has 500 people.
That was off at Comic-Con.
Near Comic-Con and that and
October.
Genericon, which is a more local con for us. I think I probably have close to 1,000 different people in mine. It's pretty crazy.
But apart from that, there have been 2 games on the Xbox I've been playing. One that I haven't gone back to because, honestly, while I want to see the continuation of the Dead Island franchise, there's not really a lot of new stuff that's built into Dead Island Riptide.
That's what I heard.
The mechanics are pretty much exactly the same. Now, you can make the BioShock argument. Mm-hmm. If the first was good and they fixed some of the glitches, it probably will be a good game, and I'll eventually get around to it. But it's funny how a $10 game can knock a $50 new console game right off the rack. I have been playing Poker Night 2 at the inventory like a goddamn fiend. I don't even like poker. I'm not good at it. All human brains are not really wired to understand probability real well, but I can bluff a machine, and it's fun listening to Brock Sampson describe himself as, I'm more like an uncle that's hired to kill people.
I actually picked that up, and my computer doesn't want to play it.
Really?
Yeah, I've got it so I could actually get the first one too, and they play, but it's very slow, and I can't stand playing a video game like that.
Yeah.
But I love the cast of characters they assembled for it. It makes me want to get the first one, which I don't think is available on the Xbox Live Store. I looked for it and couldn't find it, but I do imagine I'll be able to find it on Steam. The question is whether or not I can find it on Mac for Steam. So, but those 2 have been getting a lot of play, and just some of the shit that gets said, because you gotta look at the cast they pulled in. GLaDOS runs the table. Then you've got Brock Sampson from the Venture Brothers. You've got Claptrap from Borderlands. You've got Ash from Army of Darkness, although it's not voiced by Bruce Campbell, which is kind of disappointing. And then you've got Sam and Max. And, you know, you put those guys in put those guys in a poker game and just listen to the shit that falls out of their mouth. Pure comedic gold. I definitely recommend that. Even if you're not a big fan of poker, you'll learn enough so that you can listen to these guys bullshit each other.
And just looked it up. You can actually get the first one for Mac.
Badass. That may happen tonight.
Yeah, right through Steam.
Awesome.
And, Jay, what have you been playing?
Oh, Bayonetta, and Bayonetta, and Bay-fucking-netta. I haven't been, like you, I haven't been playing a ton of games. I've been kind of, I've been spending a lot of my time fueling probably futile and pointless creative pursuits while rewatching episodes of Lost. But, in the time I have spent gaming, I've been playing a lot more Bayonetta. That game's a lot of fun. Like I said before, it's just over-the-top goofiness, and I'm still suffering that Bioshock Infinite syndrome, where after how heavy the end of that game was, I needed a game where the introduction of one new character whose thing is that it shapeshifts to look like you. There is a cutscene where Bayonetta and the shapeshifter have a stripper dance off to prove which one is the real Bayonetta.
The palate cleanser.
Oh, I love it. I love it.
Boobs and Hair, the video game.
Jesus Christ. Also known as the 70s, the video game. But I digress. Yeah, so I'm playing that. That's still a lot of fun. Very hard. Punishingly hard. I just beat, I think it's Temperance, the wind god. And it's pretty hard. Honestly, I think the story is more interesting than people give it credit for, just because I like reading about the backstory of these different realms, because I'm not a religious person at all, but I find Bible stuff really interesting, just from a mythology standpoint.
You may not be down with the belief, but there's some good stories in there.
Yeah, exactly. I'm the same way. I really like mythology, and to me, the Bible is mythology, because I don't think of it as any truth particularly. But and so that game's very much oriented over there's these realms of heaven and hell and purgatory. You're an agent working for the devil, and you're fighting angels through the whole game. And the way they twist that with you collect all these books that tell the backstory of the world, and it's actually pretty interesting. So I'm getting a lot out of it from that standpoint too. Yes, I will let you play after we're done recording tonight. Besides that, I played a little more of Off, which I recommended last time. I'm kind of glad Frank wasn't able to make it on tonight, because I think he played Off, and I feel very bad for making him play it, because the more I play it, the more I realize it is not worth putting up with the shitty puzzles in that game. And the combat just gets extremely repetitive. It's kind of fun. I beat the first of the 3 zones of it. It's still extremely twisted and messed up looking and really entertaining just from a presentation perspective. You're fighting these enemies and stuff. The first boss is pretty cool. But then you get to zone 2 and you're in some library and you're fighting ghosts that are just like the ghosts in an area in the first zone of the game, except these are upside down. Literally, they're just floating upside down, and that's the only difference. And I just kind of quit there, because I just felt like I wasn't really gaining anything. I mean, if you want to, I honestly would suggest looking up videos of people playing the game over playing it itself, that's a horrible thing to do for any game. But I think this is one of those games where the actual, just ambiance and creepiness of it and the kind of subtle story stuff is worth seeing, but not worth putting up with the dumb number puzzles and extremely repetitive battles to enjoy. So honestly, if you're looking for something creepy and twisted and kind of Lovecraftian, look up a gameplay of the game on YouTube and just watch that, and you'll have a good time. Trying to think if there's really been anything else. I've actually while I've been editing the episodes, takes a lot of time to just sort of sit and listen and not really be doing much else. So what I've been doing is I've actually been doing a Nuzlocke challenge on a ROM of Pokemon Emerald, which I'm only doing a ROM because it's a speedrun kind of challenge. I have owned multiple copies of Pokemon Emerald in the past, one of which got lost and the other which got stolen. But no, I wouldn't advocate using ROMs and stuff, but just for the means of having it be a speed run, the Nuzlocke challenge, for anyone uninitiated, is this cool idea someone came up with for playing through Pokemon games a few years ago, where the rules are you can only catch the first Pokemon you come across in any new area you go to. After that, you can never catch a Pokemon in that area again, so you're really just up to whatever fate gives you. And if a Pokemon ever faints during battle, you have to release it. It's dead to you. One shot and you're done. So, and it's always been a fun challenge. I've started a bunch of Nuzlocke challenges in different games, but never finished one. And I am in Slateport City in this Emerald run, just got past the second gym and everything. Lost a couple guys. I'm trying to remember. I lost a Puchiana, which wasn't really doing much in my team anyway, and then I lost something else that I don't remember, so it obviously couldn't have been good. But I've been naming my Pokemon after weapons and stuff, and I've been having a good time. That's a lot of fun. I'd recommend the Nuzlocke Challenge to everyone who likes Pokemon but wants to sort of get a little more challenge out of it. It's definitely something cool to check out.
All right.
Yeah, that's about it for me.
All right. Seems like everyone.
All right, do you want to go ahead and take us out, or should I?
I'll take us out.
All right, go for it.
All right, guys. Hope you've enjoyed another episode of Hey Port Podcast. You know where to find us at HeyPortPlayer.com. You can also subscribe to our iTunes and our Stitcher, and I promise you we'll get these episodes up there as quick as we can. We're just waiting on our good friend Marius. You can follow us on Twitter at HeyPortPlayer, on Tumblr at hppofficial.tumblr.com, and of course you can go to the Reddit run by moi at reddit.com/r/HeyPortPlayer. That's about it. Alright, bye guys.
Thank you and good night.
Good night, internets.
Good night.